It is 5:30 on March 26, 2024. We have a quorum of the Bastrop City Council here for the joint meeting with BEDC, and I am declaring this meeting open. Mr. Chair.
All right, and again, it is 5:31 now on Tuesday, March the 26th, and I am calling the BEDC to order as well, as we do have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 2A to discuss regarding the sports complex potential qualified hotel project, or QHP, and action to potentially create a project for BEDC. Madam City Manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Board. Thank you for joining us at an odd hour on a Tuesday. So we have been, as many of you know, we've been punting around the idea for a regional sports facility in the remaining acreage in the BEDC Industrial Park. And as we move further along the continuum, the code does require that the EDC create a project and council approve said project. There is a portion of this dialogue that needs to happen in executive session as we talk through the potential for a qualified hotel project, a QHP. As the city, many of you are aware, perhaps not aware, the city hired a lobbyist. We received special legislation to collect the state's portion of the hotel occupancy tax, 7%, that would go toward a qualified hotel project. And so there is a potential to marry said ideas. There is a number of funding mechanisms by which this project could happen, and I'm going to lay out some of those today. When we get to the QHP, I will need the mayor or the chair to make a motion to move us into executive session. So the 2019 Garver plan, I would love to take responsibility for this, but it wasn't me. It was a plan and the plan before this. The 2019 Garver plan, funded by the BEDC, called out for a way to diversify the EDC, and one of the ideas was to develop a sports destination complex for local use and attraction for amateur sports tourism. Sports tourism is one of the largest segments of economic development across the country. Our own city's park master plan also called out the need for a regional sports facility, as our closest being College Station and San Antonio and beyond. And the draw that it would create was substantial. So how would we fund said project? It would have to be a P3 partnership, and potentially a P4 if the county would become involved. City, county, EDC, and potentially a third or fourth party in the private sector. That third party would be expected to potentially operate and potentially also finance the project. The EDC has an item in front of them from the Luck Design Group. That is a proposal for $26,200 for professional services to create a site plan and a perspective rendering of what could potentially go on the site. The site is, this is what is left, this area in green. And we've intentionally left this out, although this could be incorporated, but this has always been envisioned as being a detention pond for the areas. Stantec, who did the city's Park and Rec master plan, laid out a very 50,000-foot level of what can go there and what can potentially go there. This portion of the sports, of the industrial park is in the Toad area, and the topography here is very, very, very steep. So there was nothing drawn in here other than some trails. There are opportunities for open space amphitheaters or things like that to be incorporated into the terrain. The EDC is going through the third year of toad habitat study. This was, again, a very, very, very preliminary level. It was done by Stantec. There was no charge to either entity for this layout. So one of the items we've talked about is a venue tax. A venue tax, there is a multitude of venue tax. They all require voter approval. The venue tax that I am speaking about is a 2% in addition to our existing hotel occupancy tax. The first would require a state comptroller analysis, so there's no negative revenue impact to the state. Of course, the state has to remain whole in whatever we do. The second is that if it is a multi-party, meaning multiple cities and multiple counties, then there is a board created. If it is just the city council acts as that board. If it is a city and county, then there are multiple people from both city and county appointed to the board. In this case, city and EDC, the city could potentially appoint EDC members to the board. We could potentially push for a November election, but I will say that is pretty preliminary. We've got some work to do before we get to that point. Other financing is potentially the sale or the lease of the property if the EDC were to go along either one of those continuums. A sale of the property opens up the potential for a tax increment reinvestment zone, a TERS, meaning any sales tax and values that are created are reinvested back into that area. And there's also the potential for a public improvement district, meaning public improvements, sidewalks, road, lighting, parks, drainage, all of the things we consider infrastructure could be funded on the city's faith and good credit, and then a lien and assessment placed against the improvements, and the city is paid back and made whole. If the EDC were to produce or were to desire a lease, there is the potential for long-term revenue. And I'm envisioning third-party licensing, somebody else from the owner-operator, or the person who is licensed to run. I'm familiar with Whataburger Field, so that is always my go-to. Texas A&M Corpus Christi also funded a giant portion of the sand volleyball pits along Bayfront Park in Corpus Christi. And part of the license agreement was maintenance, and they were able to paint their logo and et cetera, on the volleyball courts. So, again, we talk about sale and lease. The venue tax is 2%. There is also an event admission tax of 10% of the price of admission that could be assessed. There is an event parking tax that would assess $3 per parking vehicle, a maximum of $3. It could be anywhere from $0 to $3. And then there's a venue facility tax. When major leagues want to come use a facility, each player is assessed an astronomically large amount of money that is included in the payment contract. And then there are other participation mechanisms, public and private. If a private entity were to come, they would finance, I'd imagine, finance a good portion on the private market, on the private equity market, to get the improvements, their portion of the improvements complete. Oh, let's go back. So at this point, I'll take any questions before we go along the HOTS and the hotel.
So we meet, when I say we, let me rephrase that. The executive committee of the EDC meets. The executive committee of the BEDC meets every 2 weeks with Sylvia, with the city manager, and we talk about several different things. We've been talking about this for a while, and the first time we really talked about bringing on a company to give us a kind of a layout, kind of a rendition. It was going to be only around $10,000, but it did not include a rendition. So this, now that you have in the agenda here, is actually the first time I've seen that second bid of 26. So it was actually quite a bit more than what we talked about originally. So that's just one point of reference. The other thing is, since this is going to be a multi-partnership type of program, is the way that we've talked about envisioning it anyway, it seems to me that before we get to any kind of a rendering, we need to have a joint meeting here to talk about what is it we would like for it to look like. It doesn't make sense to me for one board to say, well, it should look like this. And then we go to another board and it's like, no, we should look like this. It's like, no, we need to work together here. And we need to come up with what we believe would be a good start anyway, right? And I know that in the presentation of the contract that you have here, or the proposal, I should say, that it would be multiple meetings, right? Because they're going to come back and give us kind of a first initial, probably a 10,000 foot, this is kind of what we could do with it. And then we need to really set up planning, if you will, and participation to say, you know, we need maybe these kind of fields or that amount of fields. Maybe we need a pool, maybe we don't need a pool, whatever it may be. But I would like for us to have those discussions so at the end of the day, we're all on the same page, right? Because this is going to have to be a joint type of thing. What I would further recommend for your consideration is the fact that to doing it, instead of having everybody on the board, let's pick 3 people on each side. Let's do like a subcommittee, if you will, that both of us have the ability to create subcommittees. That's what we do for executive committee, and it seems to work out very well. I would like to make a proposal that we do the same thing with city council so that we can all work together, we can meet, we can come up with an agreed upon idea of what we at least start with, and then we can go ahead and start saying, this is what we want it to look like. You guys give us a rendering, and then we can take a look at it and then have follow-on meetings with that. So that's one thing that I would like to see take place, and like some discussion about that.
Council?
Well, I certainly think a joint subcommittee would be a really good idea. And, you know, I guess the chairs of the 2 boards could appoint members to that. And I think that'd be a great way to keep in touch and keep aligned as we go forward on it. Because it'll start moving one way or the other. It always does. And it's better if both groups find out about it equally rather than, you know, one get a little ahead of the other and then you start, you know, going on divergent paths when you do that.
And I also feel, too, that would be beneficial because we need return ROI numbers for different fields, right? Because some will generate more and depends, and we can get those numbers very easily. So I think a lot of factors are going to be based on dollars of generation, right? I mean, we want to provide, of course, but we have to have the money, too. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm really glad that Councilman Myers brought that up. One of the things that I'm most concerned about that I see a divergence is there is a perception in the community that this is going to be a community rec center and that this is going to be the year-round pool. And I think that that kind of flies in the face of generating revenue. And there's a happy medium, but when we say, well, we'll work on that together, one person walks away with, well, that means we have it every day but Saturday. And somebody else says, well, no, it's only 10% of the time because the point is to generate revenue. So I think setting those expectations and understanding from council what the boundaries are, I think that is really important. It's one thing for the boards to be tied together, but I really feel an obligation to the community that we set reasonable expectations and stick to them. Because the Olympic-sized pool is not mentioned specifically in the contract proposal. And I also didn't know if you guys planned on adding the specific language out of the master plan as a starting point, or if there's things that council doesn't like in the master plan, making some adjustments so that there's a base to go on.
I think that's such a great point because right now, I think the perception, and this could be the true perception, and I think that's kind of what I'm going to say. I think that the sports field for generation and hot funds, right? But also the rec center, as we see down here. The one thing I can tell you, and y'all know this, everybody knows this, our citizens want an indoor swimming pool. They really, really want that. So, and they want space, and they need space because right now we can always say, just being in this field for 39 years that I have, at the beginning of the year you always have the numbers, and then it falls off. We don't have the numbers fall off anymore at the rec center. It's going to be packed all the time. You're there, Connie, I'm there. It's happening. It's a thing. So we owe it, but I think the combination, and Sylvia, is that what we're looking at? combination?
Yes, and I will say, the city of Round Rock is probably the best example where they had a project similar to this, and their rec center is used 75% by the city. There's a reimbursement mechanism that happens, and so it is similar in Corpus Christi where the ISD and the city built the natatorium, that it is also available for public use and school and city facilities. So I think there's a balance. I think this is a great opportunity to not have it be such a burden on the general fund as we move through. And then the qualified hotel project has a bonus redeemer. So when we get done with the questions here, we can break into that addresses some of that community use.
Yeah, because there's been some comments, and there's actually even been some social media that has said, oh, well, a council member told me that Hot Funds is going to build the rec center, so it's not going to cost us anything, and it's all going to be generated from Hot Funds. And it's like, I don't think that's, people, sometimes we have a tendency to hear what we want to hear out of the conversation, but I just know there's a lot of perceptions. And someone could have even seen this presentation, and it's like, so I have to pay $3 to park every time I come to the rec center, so I just got to keep it in the box and hopefully set some real clear boundaries on what's reasonable. But has there ever been a survey ever that the community hasn't said we want a year-round pool?
Never. Well, the city manager certainly pointed out that now's our opportunity to create that dialogue within the community that creates those realistic expectations for us to move forward and have a multi-use facility, both for city services as well as for revenue generation.
I noticed that there was, excuse me, different acreages. So I've heard 70 acres and I've heard 90 acres. And so is this, and the city doesn't have land like that available except through the
No.
EDC, right?
Through the
So this is
EDC.
really the biggest chunk of single land that we've got to put this type of project on, right?
Correct.
So is this 90 acres that we're looking at, or is it 70 acres that we're
This is
looking at?
closer to 70 acres, and then there's a potential for some additional that'll be spoken about in executive session.
And then the hotel that you were talking about,
Executive session.
okay. But I agree, if this, land-wise, as if this is the only piece of land that we've got that's available to us, all these things that are on the screen right now that was produced by, during the parks master planning, all these things I hear every day from people that want all those things. And if we could stick them on one piece of land in one area, and this is kind of off the beaten path, it wouldn't be in a high traffic area. There's an argument that says it's in the industrial section, so you have to drive through an industrial section to get there, and you have to compete with truck traffic, but there's not a lot of truck traffic in that piece of the park.
Well, Jim, and if you remember, the road going up north is basically the extension of Jackson, right, that we've just about completed for the MOCA project. The gray area over there has already been purchased by that other company that's going in there. So, yes, this is what is available right here. And there will be 2, maybe even 3 roads into it. My point is that Jackson is not really going through the heart of it. It's just kind of the main street getting into it.
Yeah, so then the traffic wouldn't really come into play hardly at all then. So it would,
I was thinking you won't have any more truck traffic than you have on 95
Yeah.
getting to
true.
the park.
True, but that's always seems to be, it always comes up when you talk about putting it in the industrial park. So I think it's a great use of the land, and it's one of the only sources of a big amount of land that we have to put parks on. There's been talks of the wooded portion being a par 3 golf course. I think that's a good idea to utilize some of the land that's not flat for the playing fields, and then you could get some more park use out of it instead of just having a trail. You could shove a couple of par 3 golf holes there, and then a swimming pool. I think is a great idea. So anyway, I like this piece of the master plan from the parks perspective. If it's something that we could partner with, I think one of the partners could be BISD as well. potentially, and because of the swimming piece of it.
They have a swim program.
I don't think,
We don't have one because we don't have a pool.
they
We
don't.
could have
yeah.
one.
But that could be a potential use of that too. And so anyway, the idea in a broad view is a really good idea, and that's the biggest chunk of land that we've got to make something like this happen, so.
I just want to say one more point too about the location of this, because I've always, and we know, everybody knows this, that a rec center that serves our community, and I'm focused on the youth and the elderly. That's a safe place for them to go because they don't have to get on the highway. They can drive down and go under, so they really don't have to get on the major highway because you can go around by the sheriff's office and get there. So that's a safe place. Kids can walk there, so that's an important factor.
Sylvia, the land where the walking trail is, you talked about the toad habitat and possibly building something that would turn this maybe into some type of mixed-use project. What about flooding? Flooding in that area where that walking trail is at all?
No, the topography is really high.
So it's more of just
It's the slope.
the slope, okay. So, and my second question is probably going to, I think, be an executive session, but I was looking at different areas, and I didn't look at Round Rock, that have spent time with big projects like these. One of the major signs to look out for, things that the city should be concerned about on several of the sites, was we build something like this, and we have no place for them to stay. The hotel capacity. So we're going to be talking about hotels. Are we talking about one hotel, like a Best Western, a Plus? But I think I wanted to insert that in because when I read it, it made sense. Yeah, we can get them here for a 3-day tournament. Where are they going to stay? In Austin?
So we have 7 hotels in the pipeline now, in not just like kicking the tires, but in permitting review. A couple of them are awaiting Agnes completion. There is another project that Planning Commission will hear on Thursday. That is a rather large project. And then we'll have discussion about the QHP.
So, Sylvia, the company Luck Designs, not knowing anything about them, you know, the basics, like why were they chosen? Are they qualified? How do we know they're qualified? That kind of stuff.
Luck Designs is working on the cemetery columbariums.
Okay.
I've had experience with Luck Designs as well, and I did not want to engage a full-blown A&E study yet because I wanted us to just get our arms and fingertips on it and then begin the dialogue with both groups to see what it is we really want to do.
Right, and I think we also need to keep in mind that since we're going to be looking for a developer, the third party come in, they're going to have input and influence as well, right? Because it's, in my opinion, they're going to be spending the majority of the money to get this. So they're going to have a lot of input of what they want. And I agree. We don't really want to come up with our idea and it's finalized and we spend hundreds of thousands and it's like, wait a minute, that's not what the developer wants. Mm-hmm. And also, all these things you guys are talking about is great. That's what we're going to be talking about in this joint meeting, is to get an idea of what all we want. It's not settled by any stretch. We're just coming up with different ideas of what could be there. And this really gives us the opportunity to do something fantastic for the community.
This touches, in my mind, which is why sports as an ecotourism driver, it definitely is going to touch the tax, for sure. It's going to definitely touch the sales tax, for sure. The venue tax is embedded in the HOT, so as the HOT increases, the venue tax increases. So they're definitely married. The devil is going to be in the details, in the use, the percentage of use, and I will tell you from a joint CCISD City of Corpus Christi project, the residents did have use of the natatorium a large percentage of time, but that also meant that the city handled operations and maintenance for a greater portion. The ISD is limited legally over some things it can do, and so we sort of had a lease or lessee relationship. That was a little bit of consternation because there were times when the ISD had sports facility and events planned, but if we had a major storm event coming, that was one of our shelters of last resort. So it was, you know, it's a good marriage. It's a marriage of convenience for sure. and then the details in who gets to manage what and who gets it for what percentage of time. Round Rock is the best example because they spend a great majority of their hot end venue on sports-related tourism. Their investment to Kalahari Resorts was over $350 million over a period of time. So these are not small investments by any means that happen, but it is an investment, and we need to see it as such. So there does have to be an ROI.
So Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland asked about Tuck, and you said that you didn't want to go with a full A&E, but their proposal says that they're teaming with Freeland Turk Engineering, and I haven't ever heard of them, which doesn't mean anything, but are they going to help with preliminary drainage, or why does Tuck need an
Well,
engineering group?
There's a survey and there's other engineering-related projects. Luck Design is a landscape architect. And so from that's their primary specialty. So from a rendering, from a site development, that's their partnership with Freeland. By no means is a full engineering set going to be developed. There's some preliminary drainage information that'll be provided.
Okay. I just wasn't sure what their role was because it said they were going to use LiDAR, so I didn't think they were going to be developing their own topo.
There'll be some on the ground. There has to be the LiDAR that we have available for this area. When you go out there, it's completely different because of all the tree cover.
So is that included specifically in the 26.2?
All of that is in there, yes.
With me being newer to the EDC, could you just tell me, have we approved the 26.2 for that design?
You have not.
We have not?
No.
Okay.
That's a good point. Also, I noticed that stated in their contract, which again, it's a pro forma. It's nothing that we've signed or even, approved or anything. I just want to make it clear that the client is not the city of Bastrop. The client will be the EDC since we're the ones paying for it. So I just want to make that clear.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, have the attorneys reviewed the contract?
I haven't seen anything. I can consult with Charlie and make sure we take a look at
This didn't look like a standard. Are we going to put them to the standard professional services agreement? or-
I hadn't considered that because it's under the threshold of $50,000 and because the deliverable is an amoeba that's going to be decided by committee.
So you thought you'd do that?
Yes. What happened to us in the last EDC contract was that it was an amoeba with a very large ceiling, and we are just now working ourselves out of that, so.
So you had some pretty specific, 4 very specific items that they're going to be providing with their $26,200. So I don't see that. I didn't see anything in here, Mayor, that had civil, a
Super
complete
civil.
civil. Yeah,
no.
I think it's
A
just.
complete civil is not expected out of this.
It's kind of going to be like what we're seeing on the screen now, except with maybe hopefully more things on it. And if we are using this meeting to pick and design specific things, or is this just to kind of get it kicked off?
No, it's to get it kicked off, and as the chair stated, hopefully you guys are going to pick folks to sit on a subcommittee so that we can venture further. I would also recommend that, Mayor, whoever you select is also the liaison to the Park and Recreation.
Absolutely,
Committee.
yeah. Any other questions or comments before we move to executive session? City Council?
Yeah. EDC, any additional questions?
I just, because I'm going to get calls. A par 3 and trails don't go together. And we kind of had that conversation before, and maybe the par 3 gets considered, and that's great, but you can't push your baby in a stroller when people are hitting golf balls at you.
Well, I also think those are details that are very early for discussion right
Absolutely,
now. So
absolutely.
you can get calls and you can say it's too early for that kind of conversation.
and I know we're at 50,000, but we've had
Yes.
that conversation before about how many people can utilize property when it's a golf course. So
So if we're looking at it
Same
from an
time, second
ROI,
verse.
it would be a golf course and not a trail.
exactly. But just, again, setting expectations for the
Right.
community.
And that's a good point. Let's just keep in mind, we're just talking, we're throwing out ideas, nothing is settled, nothing's been designed yet. These are just things to talk about. So nobody go away thinking, oh my God, that's the plan we're going to go with, because it's
Can't
not.
be afraid to talk about them.
Yeah.
It's an,
right.
it's an
Can't be afraid to talk
introduction
about
on
it.
what we potentially can do at some point in time
Yeah.
through great planning and more
Yes.
discussion.
There's just so much you can squeeze into 90 acres. But that, I had a list of 6 things that people have asked me about specifically, and those were one of the 6 of the things that they said. So that's
And
why I
if you
said
go
that.
back to the Stantec report in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, there's an economic feasibility study about which one of these generates
Generates
the
income.
most dollars.
Yes.
And I actually think the Stantec report actually underestimated what these bring in. As we talked to the consultant and said, do you know that when I go watch my grandson run track, I have to pay $10, as does everybody with me, just to watch. And it's the same thing for basketball, it's the same thing for volleyball, it is the same thing for soccer. These are normally will be select type fields, right, that their parents are paying for participation for these type of regional events. So these are big dollars. The school makes sense because many of those children come up through UIL and come up through, that's how their first introduction to this type of sport is. And so, anyway, somewhere along the way, there will be a great opportunity for Bastrop youth.
And when you say that, are you referring to like these little leagues and such? Will they be able to use these fields, the different softball, baseball, little league type?
This is perhaps.
Okay.
Perhaps. Maybe for tournaments or something that has a charge or an admission fee. This is mostly for those select teams who pay to participate and have paying public who want to watch the event. So, but if we made it to the Little League World Series or could host the Little League World Series here, you know.
The key word is travel teams. And that's when your
Right.
grandkids are really excited and their parents look really scared because it's going
Yes.
to cost some money.
Yes.
Yeah.
That it does.
And that's where, honestly, I mean, and these are two different groups, right? Because we have community, which we provide for our community and the fields that we have. However, we're talking about a whole different animal here that generates a lot of money, and we're missing out on a lot of money and sending it to other towns because we don't have the facilities to do it. So,
Right, and I think that's a really good point. We really do need to keep our eyes on the prize here, so to speak. This really is a sports complex to invite traveling teams to come in. It's going to be fee-based, right? Yes, we have the ability to invite and include other people. That should be some of the discussion points that we have. But primarily, we're looking at this as a sports venue, right, as a sports complex.
So I'll give you an example. In Corpus Christi, when Cal Allen and Robstown, 2 5A teams, local teams, made baseball state playoffs, or we hosted a UIL tournament, the school and the other teams had an ability to come and practice on the fields and play on the field, sort of have the home team advantage. So there's the opportunity for those kinds of things, especially if we have good sports.
I'm glad you used Round Rock as an example, because I don't know how much money I've spent in Round Rock going to Little League, select baseball, all of that. And it's, with the location of Bastrop and the lack of fields within a short travel distance here, this would be a really good opportunity to capitalize on that. And with at least 7 hotels coming here, if not more, if they all finished at the same time, would be ideal, where you could start marketing a sports complex and have all the hotels here to go with it. And they're already starting. So great. It's just a great idea, and it could be a great revenue stream for the area and all the businesses here.
As well as to pay for the M&O to maintain them. That is the details that we must work out. So once again, are there any questions or comments before we go into executive session? Seeing none indicated. At this point, the City Council go into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, and 551.087.
Again, we're going into the The BEDC will go into executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, sections 551.071, .072, and .087. And it is 6:06:05.
City Council is in executive session.
To invite a motion from the directors here on the, what we just talked about of the sports complex.
I'd like to make a motion for the creation of a BEDC project to be called Sports Complex, to be located within the Bastrop Industrial Park.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much.
And as discussed earlier, we are going to appoint a working committee to look at the sports complex issue moving forward. And as mayor, I would like to appoint Councilmember Crouch and Councilmember Meyer to that committee, as well as myself as mayor.
Yes, and I'd also like to appoint on our committee would be Director Schrader and Director Urbanik, as well as myself on the committee.
Alan, do we need action on those committee appointments?
I don't think so.
So with a defined action taking place, entertain a motion from council to adjourn this joint meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion from Councilmember Crouch.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Meyer. Council stands adjourned.
And I need a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn BEDC.
All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Hi, it's 6:30 on March 26, 2024. I'm calling this regular session of the Bastrop City Council to order. City of Bastrop reserves the right to reconvene, recess, realign the regular session or called executive session or order of business at any time prior to adjournment. I'm going to alert everybody that we will be changing up a little bit. We're very pleased tonight to have two outstanding young folks who will be leading our pledge. If y'all will come up when we call your names, Spencer Reuter and Kaylee Kinley Whitworth. They're going to lead us in the pledge. Will everybody please stand? Uncover, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Let's give these young folks a round of applause. You going to take a picture? Okay. Stand there and let her take pictures of you. Look at her over there. There you go. Thank you, kids. Good job. For our invocation, we will remain standing. We'll have the Reverend Bob Long, one of our police chaplains.
Thank you, sir. Join me in prayer, please. Father God, as we come before you tonight in Jesus' name, we just ask that you bless this council meeting. We thank you for each and every council member and our mayor and our city manager and our city secretary and all those in attendance. And Lord, if anybody's speaking, guide them in their speech. And Lord, we ask for wisdom. Wisdom in our leaders to make good and godly and righteous decisions. We thank you for the city of Bastrop. We thank you that it is a place that you reside because we want you here, Lord, and we pray here at the seat of authority. We ask for your
Amen. Thank you, sir. Y'all may be seated. Thank you, ma'am. We'll move to presentations. I have nothing to report for my mayor's report. Councilmember Kraus, do you have anything you'd like to report out on?
I do not
Thank
this
you.
week. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Meyer.
Thank you. Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have something to report, and I'm surprised the mayor didn't report. We attended the TML mid-year conference,
We did.
and that is where you, as council members, we can take educational courses to get more knowledge to help us do our jobs better and serve our communities better. It's been one of the highlights of my career on council because I love learning. I love learning things that I need that are important so that I can answer questions with knowledge. So I take great joy in that. In order to get a record of achievement, you have to have at least 54 hours of credit in a year's time. Our former mayor was here 3 months out of last year and achieved 54 credit hours, so kudos to her. And our current mayor also achieved 54 hours of credit, and they received certificates of achievement. I am always the overachiever, achieved not only the 72 hours, but 104 hours of credit last year, and I got a pretty little piece. So I love taking those courses. I think that they are very educational. If one of us achieves it this year, Bastrop will have gotten it 5 years in a row, and we will get an award for having achieved our credits for 5 years in a row. So we're taking on the challenge. I'm looking for 112 hours this year. We'll see what the mayor does. And I also would like to see Bastrop show up on that Texas spirit. So every year during our actual conference, they highlight cities that are doing wonderful things in their community. And since I have been on council, Bastrop has not been on that screen. And we are doing wonderful things in the city of Bastrop. So I'm hoping to get with the city manager to see what we can do to apply for that. The applications must be submitted by June 7th. So we'll see what we can work out. That's all I have.
That's outstanding. I wanted you to be able to speak to your accomplishment. That was very good. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Finally, Councilmember Plunkett.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Now we'll move to the city manager's report. Please, ma'am.
Mayor, I'm ceding my time for the racial profiling report by Chief Stefanik.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. We have no work sessions or briefings scheduled. We do have a staff and/or board report. Receive the annual racial profiling report from the City of Bastrop Police Department. Chief Stefanik, the podium is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
You got the clicker.
On September 1st, 2001, Senate Bill 1074 was enacted and created what has become to be known as the racial profiling law. Each year, the chief administrator of a law enforcement agency is required to submit an annual report as outlined by state law to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement and to our City Council. In 2023, the City of Bastrop Police Department conducted 3,694 traffic stops. This presentation depicts the context as they are related to the driver's gender, race, the reason for the stop, location of the stop, search conducted, and contraband discovered. The 3,694 traffic stops resulted in either a warning being issued, a citation being issued, a warning with an arrest, or a citation with an arrest. As it pertains to gender, just over 40% of our traffic stops were conducted on female drivers, and just under 60% were conducted on male drivers. As it pertains to race, Alaska Native, 0.48%, Asian Pacific Islander, 1.7%, Black, 10.47%, Hispanic, 35.19%, and whites, 52.13%. Whether the race or ethnicity was known prior to the stop, of the 3694 traffic stops, we had 9 traffic stops where the race was known. And this could have been for a reason such as the individual passed in front of the officer at a stop sign. The reasons for traffic stops are moving traffic violations, pre-existing knowledge, vehicle traffic violations, and violation of law. So an example of the moving traffic violation would be a speeding citation. Pre-existing knowledge could be a warrant. Vehicle traffic violation could be an equipment deficiency, or violation of law could be no seatbelt. The location of the stops are city streets, county roads, private property, or state highway. 51% of our traffic stops were conducted on city streets, and 47.9% of our traffic stops were conducted on state highway. In regards to the searches of the 3,694 traffic stops, 108 of these traffic stops, a search was conducted, which is less than 3%. The reasons for the search would be consent, contraband in plain view, incident to arrest, inventory, or probable cause. Whether or not contraband was discovered, of the 108 searches, over 70% resulted in contraband being located. The types of contraband would be alcohol, drugs, currency, weapons, or stolen property, and other. An example of other would be drug paraphernalia. Of the 3,694 traffic stops, the City of Bastrop Police Department had 0 uses of force that resulted in bodily injury, and we also received 0 traffic stop complaints for 2023. All feedback on our customer service is welcome at any time. Anybody, citizens, anybody in the community can file a complaint or a compliment with us at the City of Bastrop Police Department on our homepage, or you can contact us in person by coming to the City of Bastrop Police Department. Do you have any questions?
I believe we do. Councilmember Lee.
Yes, ma'am.
So kudos to the no complaints. Very happy to see that. I do have some questions, and this may be something that we can talk about more in depth later, or whenever I see these reports, one, I always wonder, I do believe from the last one that you gave, you said that this was not specifically isolated to Bastrop. It could be people traveling through. So it doesn't really represent the percentage of any specific race that we have actually living in the city.
Correct.
So that I always question then how accurate the numbers are, because if 6% of the population is black and you're stopping 5%, are you stopping most of the black population? I haven't, and I tell people all the time, I'm not great with percentages and numbers, but if you're calculating this based on the enormous amount of people that come to town that may not even be city residents, I would be interested in knowing what is the percentage of residents that are stopped in terms of race. And I don't know if that's something that's supposed to be figured out, but it's always a question in my mind when I'm reading these reports.
So our traffic stops, when we run the numbers, non-residents is a little over 57%, and residents are at 42.82%. When we do the comparisons, we typically do it based on the census data. So looking at the census data, yes, we're within I guess, the 5% margin or whatever's allotted for comparing it to our census, but you are correct. When we compare these numbers, they are not being compared. We're using the Fair Standards Act. There's been discussion from agencies all over the country on the best way to do it. what we use is just the typical standard that basically all agencies use. I do agree that there's different ways that it can be done, and we can run the numbers as best we can where we're only looking at our traffic stops for the city of Bastrop and comparing it to the city of Bastrop. That's something that we can do. It would take a little bit of time, but that's just not what is reported for the state requirements.
I think it's something you and I maybe could talk about offline. I don't want to get into the weeds of it here, but I know people in the public would be interested in knowing that specific data. And yes, we're only required to do so much, because I actually compared our form to other cities, and they were all the same. So everyone's using the standard form.
Yes, ma'am.
But if you're really trying to ensure, I think, that this is not occurring, I think that it's important that we do break it down, and maybe for reports in the future, bring that information in, and maybe you can show me what all is involved in doing that. But I think that some people may be mistrusting of the data when you add in those factors.
Yes, ma'am. And we can. And then once we take a look at it, I'd be more than happy to share it with the community, just so that people that are interested can take a look.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Lee, that was actually a conversation at DEI also, because some of the numbers do seem disproportionately high, but when you take into account where the stop occurred, and if it was a person who was traveling through Bastrop, perhaps on the way to Houston or any one of the outlying areas, it does tend to make the number skew.
Thank you for that. Chief, I appreciate it. We
Thank you.
appreciate the efforts of you and your officers every day.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to agenda item 9 for citizen comments. I currently have some citizen comments. I now have some additional citizen comments that are not agenda item specific, and I will call them up in the order in which I received them. I will alert you, you'll have 3 minutes, and when you come to the podium, please give us your name and address. And our first person to be called up is TJ Finn. Welcome.
Hello, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you bringing me up. My name is TJ Finn. I am the general manager here at the Hampton Inn and Suites in Bastrop. We're located at 240 South Hassler Boulevard. And this is my sales manager, Heather. She came with me today. I wanted to address some rumors that are going around Bastrop that the Hampton Inn and Suites is somehow busing illegal aliens out of our parking lot, which is completely ridiculously false. I want to state that just because you're Hispanic does not mean you're an illegal alien. We actually allowed Tesla to do a carpool out of our parking lot when Carts was no longer able to provide that service, because we think it's great for the environment, it lessens the traffic on our highways, and we're doing it as, a good deed to Tesla, who are good clients of ours. The problem is some rumors have been spreading, whether that is for political gain or it is things going around, I don't know, but someone came to the hotel in a Dodge pickup truck and followed the Tesla bus back to their yard in North Austin. The bus driver was worried, they were concerned. Tesla, of course, is concerned because obviously someone's stalking these people. This is not okay. If the city was aware of this 6 months ago that this rumor was going on, someone should have, and finally did, and I'm very thankful for that person who came to me and said, you need to be aware of this, because 6 months ago someone from the city should have alerted us that this was going around. Now, I want to say thank you to our Chief Stefanik, who is wonderful, and Bastrop PD is the best. And she came out, of course, to be sure last Monday that everything was safe and this was not what was going on. And of course, they found nothing and did let me know we didn't bother you because we knew it was nothing. But we want to be sure that everyone is safe here in Bastrop, knows that we love Bastrop. I love this city. I love the people in this city. And we want to be sure that we're addressing rumors like this. And the city council needs to come to us to address these rumors and not use this as a political ploy. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Our next to be called up is Chris White. Name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes there, sir.
Chris White, 208 Strand Lane. Good evening, Council. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you guys for your efforts in recreation. Recently, you guys installed lights at the skate park this last week, and they've been a huge success. We got skateboarders, young and old, coming out. So it's been greatly appreciated. I wanted to thank Sylvia, Terry Moore, and the city staff for really getting on that. It's a huge deal, and it means more than you guys know. So appreciate it. Thank you guys for letting me reminisce and practice my tricks again. So thank you guys.
Thank you for all your efforts on bringing that skateboard park to us. I'm sorry, World Sports Complex, I believe is the name of it. Thank you. Next, Sean Plesh.
I'm going to wait.
Okay. David Harwell. Greetings. Name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is David Harwell of 113 Wiley Court in Bastrop, Texas. I'm here to represent the Recreation Center. So I wanted to thank each of you, as well as the committee members and other governance volunteers and city staff who have put efforts towards finding additional space for people in Bastrop to focus on their health and wellness. Thank you. I also wanted to let you know that yesterday we opened our registration system for April classes. So that's all of April. It opened online at 8 a.m. By 9 a.m., all of the classes for seniors were full. We have no more room. So I tell you this because I want you to understand what the demand is and what the need is. And so that you can better make decisions about how to serve the citizens of Bastrop and your constituents. And I also know that you have a very busy agenda today, so I just wanted to bring that piece of information to you. Thank all the people that have been showing up for the Recreation Center to let you know what the need is, and I'll yield the rest of my time so that you can look for solutions for the citizens of Bastrop. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Next, Tom Dickey. Irby Morvant.
Hey, everybody.
Greetings, sir.
How you doing? Welcome. Irby Morvant, the general manager of Hyatt Regency Lost Pines Resort and Spa Golf Club. Nice to see all of you. Thanks for all that you do every day, clearly. Understand there's a little bit on the topic of how we restructure or where we go with Visit Bastrop and the funds that we provide as far as supporting tourism. All I'm here to do today is ask that I be part of the conversation. As an employer in Bastrop who employs a good deal of our community and also provides the tax base from that community, it's important for us, from a Hyatt perspective, to be there for the community in which we live and serve. So to be part of that conversation would be important to us. With that said, there's a lot of details that goes into when you provide tourism to a place, to a city, to a county, et cetera. And I know we obviously would have some crossover. We have some things that we can look at restructuring. There are some things there that could be changed, and I think we can work on that. But I would say the work of Visit Bastrop has been pretty solid from what I've seen. I've been here for 1 year, and if I take 1 minute off to the side, I've been with Hyatt for 35 years. I've traveled around a good bit, from small towns to large towns to Hawaii to so forth in communities, and understand how that tourism space works. And nobody just shows up unless they kind of hear a little bit about it. And I think Visit Bastrop over the last couple of years, if I looked at some of the stuff that has been out and the accolades, looks like it's done a pretty good job in that sense, where it's won some family awards, it's won some designations, it's won some great small town awards. It's been fairly prevalent in the media, which then gets boots on the ground of people coming, then turns around to maybe a head in a bed the next time, which is all driving the revenue that we all need, which keeps the storefronts open, people happy, jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So here to support in any way I can, here to be part of the conversation where I can, and look forward to that. Lastly, I would say, won't get into the weeds in it here, but I think there is an absolute space where we need to be certain that we are marketing the destination online and media in what you call top of funnel and mid funnel to have people with search engine optimization driving people to the town. So I think that's something that's just important. It's something that needs to be looked at in certain ways, and I'd be happy to be part of that. That's really about it. So thank you for your time, and look forward to catching up with you soon. Right?
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Madam Secretary, do we have anybody else that wants to speak on citizen comments?
No, Mayor.
All right, Council, we are going to move to executive session to consider one item. That's be item 12A. We have some additional items on the executive session, but we're going to go ahead and move because of the number of people who have expressed interest in this item. Item 12A is City Council shall convene in a closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 to seek the advice of legal counsel regarding Visit Bastrop's destination and marketing services agreement and related policies, procedures, and practices. It is 6:56. Council's in executive session. 21, the council is back in open session. On relative to item 12A, do I have a motion?
I have a motion. I make a motion to move to create a hotel occupancy tax task force to evaluate the best means of using these funds. We will approve a resolution at our next meeting.
I have a motion from Councilmember Crouch. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland. Do we have any further discussion? Councilmember Lee.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. So I was very disturbed coming into tonight's meeting for multiple reasons that I still feel like I should express. And a lot of discussion that was had, I feel, should have been had in open session. I want to thank Councilmember Plunkett because I feel like out of all the discussions that have been had concerning Visit Bastrop, he brought the most perspective for me as to a path forward. What has disturbed me over the last week is what led up to these conversations and discussion. I first became aware there have been ongoing issues and discussions with Visit Bastrop. Everybody in Bastrop is aware of this. What was brought to my attention as the catalyst for what has been said over the past week of defunding Visit Bastrop was an event that was hosted at the Hampton Inn last year that was brought to my attention by the city manager on Monday the 18th. She stated she needed to fill me in with some things that Councilmember Myers was in an uproar about Visit Bastrop giving hot funds for an event. The next day, we received an email with more explanation of what this event was. And I feel like it is not, it undermines the integrity of this dais if we go out publicly and cause an uproar in the community about things, get people wired up and fired up for what one might seem as a valid reason, and if you do more research, it might not be a valid reason. I do not think that our public wants us to spend our time and energy, those that are concerned about putting food on their table, how we're going to get water, where's our wastewater treatment plant, on things that cause disruption and divisiveness in the community. I'm very disappointed that this has occurred over the last week. I can't tell y'all how many countless hours of phone calls I have been on, upset about it. how much of my own time that I have spent trying to take a deeper dive into this problem that was created by some of our council members. The hot fund discussion regarding an event that was hosted at Hampton Inn was for an organization or a genre of TV called Boy Love. This was made a big deal of, and if we're going to make a big deal of it in a negative way, I think we owe the public to explain the entire situation and not go behind a closed door and express how we feel about it, and not after we've created such an uproar. This organization put in an application for hot funds through Visit Bastrop. Hot funds did what they were, or Visit Bastrop did what they were required to do. The organization that the two-part test. The Visit Bastrop forwarded that application to the city. Whoever processes the applications at the city gave no cause for concern, and the event was hosted last June. Now all of a sudden we're finding out, after going through Visit Bastrop's finances and events that they funded, that this Boy Love event was hosted. The city manager advised that Councilmember Crouch and Councilmember Meyer were wanting to defund Visit Bastrop because of this event on top of other issues or concerns that they have. What concerned me initially, and I reached out to the city manager and the city attorney and advised them that I thought this was clear discrimination. If the application was completed and it was accurate and it met the two-part test, they were able to get funding for that event. Then it became a discussion of that organization being associated with rape, pedophilia. No one could verify that. This is all Reddit information, Google searches, looking at some film titles, and things of that nature. I asked, did anybody watch the films? No one had watched the films, said they didn't want to watch the films. I was given a few titles. Some of the titles, I mean, if you look at the titles, you're like, okay, what is that about? I get it. But if you actually look into the actors of these films, and their background and what types of movies they do, which I did in the city manager's office. These actors are 23 and up. The actors that we looked at in your office were 23 and up. We found no films where there was a man, in that moment, a man sleeping with a boy, or rape, or incest, or pedophiles. After I left that meeting, I told her in that meeting, I don't see it as what they were making it to be. So I then spent probably 2 days doing a deep dive into Boy Love, which is what I think should have been done before we went out publicly in the community to upset people and get people riled up over something or nothing. NAMBLA is an organization. So Boy Love is male-on-male love, period. No ifs, ands, buts about it. However, much like our film industry, there are different levels of these things. NAMBLA is the worst. I actually spoke with someone whose job it was to go after NAMBLA, which is National Association of Man-Boy Love, or something like that. I know someone who actually did that for a living. Boy Love is a subgenre of NAMBLA. It has nothing to do with NAMBLA. Their films are not about rape and incest. And just like we do in the United States, they have a PG, they have a rated G, they have a rated PG, they have a PG-13 rated R. They're different genres of movies. What I also discovered was their movies are more of rom-coms. The group that came here to the Hampton Inn are the groups that are 17 and up. They produce films that are rom-coms. Are there some that are dirtier and filthier? Absolutely. But the group that was here for that event, they are in a genre that is for love and romance with some sexuality, and they separated by age. If there are children or if people in these films that are under the age of 17, there is no sexuality involved. And then I went through and I looked at about 20 of the films and I read the synopsis. The synopsis of each of those films specifically states what those films are about. CEO and intern have a romantic relationship that blows up the office. Baker hires an employee, they can't stand each other, then they fall in love. The scenes that are in those films are no different than a scene that you would see in Pretty Woman or any movie Jennifer Aniston is in. Jennifer Lopez did a movie called The Boy Next Door, where she slept with a high school student in the film, and he became a stalker. If Jennifer Lopez showed up at the Hampton Inn, she would not be banned from the Hampton Inn for a film like that. Pretty Woman would fall in the same category. American Beauty would fall in the same category. So I want us to be very careful when we start picking and choosing what events can and can't happen in our city because of what your political or personal belief is. What are we doing? We have citizens riled up attacking our businesses. The LGBTQ community can't host an event without their application being pulled. They tried to host an event at the public library. There was an uproar amongst council members and members of this community about an event that they paid for, put in their application for, and were approved. The city manager pulled their application was scrutinized, the library was questioned as to how this happened. They applied for an event just like any other group. Why is it every time the LGBTQ community tries to do something, they are scrutinized? Without having to, with the boy love thing, there should not have been an uproar about this event without actually doing the research. You cannot put every genre of TV and film into one category. So it is either about them being gay or it's a political thing. And what are we doing? Why is the library being harassed? Why are some groups of people able to pull books out of the library just by going through the city and saying they don't like the book? So we go and remove the book or move the book to another area of the library, and they're not required to follow the process that this city council voted on. We have a process. Everybody has a right to their feelings and their beliefs, but if I walk into the city office and say that I want a book removed, I'm not going to get that book removed without following the process. Let's stop treating this community as if they are less than. They are part of this community. 99% of the community is not against boy love. There are people in this community, and that genre was actually created for women to enjoy, for women entertainment, by women. And the people that were here for that event was for educational purposes. Why do we keep putting this group of people through things that we have the privilege to do? Follow the process. Why are we threatening? I'm being told by the city manager that council members are threatening to defund the library if they don't give in to the demands of books being removed without following the process. What are we doing? We are not here to represent our political party. We are not here to represent our religion. These people are people. I don't care if they're purple, brown, black, or blue. I don't care what education they have. I don't care if they're a Democrat. I don't care if they're a Republican. They are people that live in this community. Stop the madness. That is not what we are here for. You were put in this seat to represent everybody. Be fair about it. I appreciate, again, Kevin, the perspective that you brought. I think that the Visit Bastrop will be happy with what we come out with, but I felt compelled to stand up for the LGBTQ community. I'm tired of saying, let's be transparent, and then we get behind the room and you say something completely different. Be the council members that this city deserves. Thank you.
Mayor, I really need to correct some topics of Councilmember Lee. First of all, I'm going to tell you that as a council member, you represent the entire city. You do. And you represent the community values, the community. So when there are several members of the community who arise, yes, absolutely, it is going to draw attention and it is going to draw ire. Absolutely. And yes, there is a process. Absolutely. Some of those processes you are not aware of, period. Secondly, boy love, when you research it, and I sent the city attorney a clip, 1 minute into the clip was a rape scene. 1 minute and 21 seconds to be exact into the trailer was a rape scene. It has tagged rape, nudity, sexual violence, gang rape, among other things. What Visit Bastrop is supposed to do is also brand identity. I do not believe that 99% of the residents would stand up to a brand identity that is labeled rape. If you believe that to be the case, then I am sorry for you.
Did I say that I believe that to be the case? Absolutely not. Do not put words in my mouth.
You have placed words in most of this council's
my
mouth,
statement.
ma'am.
I will finish. You made a comment. I will finish my
I
statement.
did not interrupt your statement as
And
you
you're
spoke.
interrupting mine. Do not put words into my mouth. I stated early on there are different levels of these films. So we are going to search for what we want to search for to prove our point. I spent 2 days searching through film after film after film, explanation after explanation after explanation. Are there versions that are X-rated? There are. And the city of the countries of Japan and Thailand have deemed them illegal, and they have task force in place to catch the people that are creating the 1 minute 27 film that you passed on. When you look at more films, you will actually see that the bottom line is the majority of the current boy love genre does not support the films that you're referring to, nor does the LGBTQ community. You can't take one piece of it and then deem all of it bad. You can't compare Black Lives Matter to the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Panther Movement. They're two different movements. What I'm saying is they put in their application, Visit Bastrop did the job that they're required to do because our policy doesn't require them to do any more. So when we discuss policy, then maybe we can charge them with something. The application passed through the city, of which you were city manager.
No,
I
ma'am.
don't know who reviews them.
No, ma'am. Those applications do not pass through the city. They are solely the discretion of Visit Bastrop. And no, Visit Bastrop did not do their post report. Their post report, signed by their prior CEO and staff fingerprints, lists 100 hotel rooms.
I agree.
Verification of that, post verification by me 2 weeks ago, and more than a year, almost a year after the event, shows that to be a false statement.
I agree.
Along with the rest of the audit trail that the city has been investigating. So you can stand there and make it an LGBTQ community comment, but the reality is that is not. The reality is the behavior and their lack of oversight and their lack of audit based on the audit results and the blatant disregard for public funds and public taxpayer dollars is why we are here today. You can make it what you want to make it to pontificate from the dais, ma'am, but that is incorrect.
City manager, you told me it was about that. You told me that Councilmember Meyer and Councilmember Crouch had a problem with the name Boy Love. Boy love.
By definition, yes, ma'am.
So that made
By
it
definition,
LGBTQ.
yes, ma'am.
That made it an attack against LGBTQ. And boy love can be referenced on anything. My child calls me, and when he answers the phone, I said, "What do you want, little boy?" Boy George, very famous singer, started with the name Boy George. When he was 23, they asked him as an adult, past the age of 30, why would he not change his name to something else? He said, "What am I supposed to change it to? Man George? I am confident in myself and who I am. I prefer to be called Boy George." My friends came into town this weekend, and half of them are gay or lesbian. They called each other girl all night. Males. You said Councilmember Crouch and Councilmember Meyer had a problem with the name Boy Love.
Yes,
So
by
now the
definition.
LGBTQ community is supposed to change?
Wait,
Yes, by definition.
This discussion has gone way beyond, we have a motion on the floor right now. This discussion, y'all can have this discussion and then advertise the discussion that y'all have had, but y'all are taking away from this meeting right now with this one-on-one argument in my mind.
Thank you, I agree.
We have a motion on, we have a
Mayor,
motion.
could I just make one tiny little statement? I promise I'm not going to rant.
Yes,
It's not
ma'am.
going to be ugly.
Yes, ma'am.
Has been brought up. So please, the oversimplification that Councilmember Lee has said about me and the misunderstanding is totally incorrect. I have a problem with city funds being used for any activity that would be engaged with pedophilia, rape, or thereof. I do not care if they are gay or straight. Absolutely not. That is the point. The point, we're not going to try to oversimplify this and really insult the gay community by saying that's what this is, because that's not what this is. And I am concerned about Visit Bastrop. Absolutely. We had an investigation that showed funds were not accounted for. We've had a lot of things come out of this, so you better believe I'm very concerned about Visit Bastrop, because I am concerned about how we spend taxpayer funds. And that is my number one concern. So let's don't oversimplify it with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Crouch, last comment.
You're just a couple of clicks away from, if you do any kind of search for boy love, from pornography and pedophilia. So that's what I base my comments on, and I stand behind that because that's what I search. You can search for days, and that's your deal, whatever search engine you use. When I searched it, that's what I saw. I don't think that the city funds or city sponsorship should have anything to do with any sexually oriented organizations whatsoever. That's not what we want to spend our money on. That's not what I think that the city should be spending their money on. If we want to spend our money, spend it on a soccer tournament. It shouldn't go to anything sexually oriented. And if you need me to reread the motion, I'm happy to reread the motion. If we need to do that, if not, let's vote on it and move on.
Does council have, understand the motion at this point in time?
I'm not sure that there was a second, and if not,
I second
There was a
Oh,
second.
thank
There
you.
was a second. We had a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, Madam City Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Councilmember Crouch,
Absolutely.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Thank you, council. We'll move on to item 10A, consider action to approve city council minutes from March 12, 2024, regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the
Move
minutes?
to approve.
I have a motion from
Second.
Councilmember Plunkett. I have a second from Councilmember Crouch. Madam City Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Councilmember Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland,
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Thank you, council. We'll now move to item 11A for individual consideration. Consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-33, the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving amendment number 6 to the task authorization number 2 of the original professional services agreement with Freeze and Nichols Incorporated to provide additional construction phase service for the Simsboro Water Treatment Plant well field and transmission facilities project for a not-to-exceed amount of $516,975, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause and establishing an effective date. Mrs. Carvalho.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. So this is an amendment to the professional services existing contract with Freeze and Nichols to extend the construction phase services for the Simsboro Water Treatment Plant. As you know, this project is in construction right now, and we are on schedule to bring the 2 wells by the end of May to bring additional water to the city. and also on schedule to finish the completion of this project by January 2025. I'll refer to our consultant right now to present the need for this amendment.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kendall King. I'm a principal with Freeze and Nichols. I'm the principal in charge of the work that Freeze and Nichols is doing for the Simsboro Water Project. Okay, and I'm here tonight to request your approval of this amendment to extend our construction phase services for another 48 weeks to 11 months to the completion of this construction contract. So a little bit of background. In 2018, late 2018, we began the preliminary engineering design for this project. We had a contract approved in July of 2020 that was for design, construction phase services, all the way through completion. It was a little unusual at that time to include construction phase services in that design contract because often we don't know how long that construction project is going to last before we start design. But the acting city manager asked us to include it in that contract, and so we estimated what we thought that duration would be at 16 months based on input from our construction services folks at that time. This was in 2020. We were just getting started with the whole thing with COVID. And at that time, we really didn't understand the impact that COVID and supply chain disruptions and everything was going to have on the construction duration. So we started the project assuming 16 months. As I said, we really didn't understand. We knew that it was disrupting our work, and obviously it was disrupting city council meetings. Contract came to city council in July of 2020, or in June. We got our notice to proceed in July. At that time, the city council didn't know whether they wanted to use construction manager at risk. And so when we started the project, the construction manager at risk piece of that was not included in our contract. The reason I bring that up was because the construction manager at risk didn't come on board until we were well into the next year. And when they prepared their schedule model, their first schedule model, they said that this project is going to take longer than 16 months. And then with every update to that schedule model, that duration just kept getting longer. We finally got under construction. We had this discussion with Ms. Carvalho, that our construction duration was anticipated to be 16 months. It was going to be a lot longer than that. We said, let's do what we can to make our money stretch as far as we can. We've been very efficient in the way that we've executed the work. We've actually gone to bi-weekly construction meetings instead of monthly construction meetings, but we've been able to stretch that by the way we're handling some of our labor. Our construction manager on site is kind of pulling double duty. We're doing a lot of virtual meetings, and so the money has stretched further than what we originally planned, but we're at the point now where we need to extend the construction phase services agreement out to the end of the project. In case you don't know, our construction phase services includes all of what we call our general engineering representation, which is all the work that our design team does in the office to support the project. It's reviewing submittals, it's answering questions, it's being involved in when there's discussions about means and methods or things that the contractor's doing. Our design team gets involved in that. It also includes our maintenance of the project management information system, which manages all of the massive amount of construction documents. And then the biggest part of this fee is for our full-time resident project representative, the inspector that's on site. We have one man that's full-time on site, and so the biggest chunk of this is to pay the salary of that person who's on site for the remaining portion of the project. It extends our work out 48 weeks to the end of construction, which is in January. As Fabiola says, it's scheduled, and we have no reason to think that the schedule is not going to be met. It's on schedule now. And as I said earlier, we've kind of based this fee on the way we've managed the project up to this point, the actual burn rate that we've used, not based on what we assumed it was going to be when we came up with our original fee. So we've used our actual burn rate, the hours that we've got, the way that we're our construction manager on site is kind of doing double duty. Some of us attending the meetings virtually instead of driving to the site, even though we've got the 2 meetings a month instead of what we assumed would be 1 when we started. I think we're being very efficient with our budget. We have also changed this. Instead of being lump sum, we've set this up to be a time and materials with a maximum, so if we don't use all the budget, we won't charge you. Any questions for me?
Councilmember Crouch.
You're almost doubling the work construction amounts timeline. So you had 50 weeks originally scheduled, and you're asking for 48 additional weeks. On the other item, you had 69 weeks, and you're asking for 48 additional weeks. And I understand what you're saying with the COVID and the supply chain shortages. I don't see that as a continued thing now, not to the extent it was whenever the contract was done during COVID or right at COVID. What are we doing to see what we can do to shorten the construction schedules?
I beg to differ with you on your statement about that it hasn't continued. It has most certainly continued in the construction business. Our projects are taking literally almost twice as long to complete as they did pre-COVID, and that is a fact.
Is it because of supply, or is it because of what is your reasoning for it?
Some of it is labor shortages, some of it is supply chain, some of it is just delivery dates on equipment. Things that used to take 40 weeks or 2 years now. And that's just the fact. And part of the reason that, and we have, I know we've given you sticker shock on what we estimated the wastewater treatment plant project cost was going to be. And part of that cost is because projects are taking that much longer to build. And so you've got all the overhead cost, all the insurance costs, the management cost, all those things add up to on top of all the additional materials costs. These projects are taking 40 to 100% longer to build than they did pre-COVID, and that is a fact, and that has not changed. There's some other things that came into our 16-month estimate that we didn't realize in the design phase. So we thought 16 months would be a reasonable duration for the project. When we got into design, and understand we're building this water treatment plant on a site that's less than an acre. And so when we started the construction sequencing, and especially when we started working with the CMAR about how we're going to build this, it became evident that we were going to have to build the clear well first. And the rest of the plant, because it took so much space, the rest of the plant was going to have to wait until that was done. Well, that really wasn't anticipated before we started design. We had no way of really knowing that things were going to play out that way. And so the construction duration, had we looked at the construction sequencing, it would have been longer than 16 months anyway, because the clear well had to be built before we could even start on the rest of the structure for the plant, because those things are consecutive. They can't be done at the same time. So there's other things that drove it besides just COVID, but the fact is projects are taking much, much longer than they did pre-COVID still.
I don't agree 100% with what you're saying. I do agree that there was some impact when COVID happened, that there was some impact with material deliveries, with piping supplies with electrical gear specifically, to where those things were going from 16 weeks to 60 weeks out to get. But I don't know, maybe you need to look for another source or other subcontractors that maybe can provide the manpower. But I think we need to look at all the options and not just say, let's double the time frame of this and double the money for it, because that's what I feel that you're asking for.
Well, the construction
should look
schedules,
at,
the construction
options.
schedule's not set by me. The construction schedule is what the construction manager at risk has contracted for. I mean, it's not me that set the construction schedule. It was the construction manager at risk that set that. And they're the ones that said that how long it was going to take.
Yeah, I feel like they need to relook at the schedule. I don't
Perhaps
see
it's
it
a discussion
doubling.
we need to have with the Seymour.
Yeah, I don't see it doubling, and that's what this is showing, is that it's double, almost double. So those are my questions. What are we doing to see if there are other options to do this besides just throwing money at it and doubling the time?
I don't know how to answer your question. Like I said, the construction contract is established. That completion date is set. Substantial completion is set for Christmas of this year, and final completion is January of next year. And that time is set. And believe me, the contractor wants to get finished as soon as possible. We're jumping through hoops to be able to make sure that we've got 2 wells in service, a pipeline complete and a clear well complete, so that we can make sure we bring water into the city this summer, so that you don't run out of water this summer. And that's our contingency plan that we came up with to try to meet your needs while this construction project plays out.
Councilmember Crouch, I had very similar questions, although my question was a little bit different from the points of the schedule. It seems that when we hired the CMAR, we were then aware that it was going to be a 28-month process. Why it took us so long to get to this point today in front of the dais, I'm not sure, other than that's a conversation for Freese and Nichols. But it seems that at some point back during this time frame, it was never a 16-month process. It was always a 28-month process.
I tried to make the point that we knew early on when the CMAR came on board that it was longer than 16 months. And during their design phase services, every time they updated their schedule model, that schedule seemed to get longer. We didn't know that the day they came on board. And then even when we opened the bids for the GMP 2, the electrical contractor said, I need 2 more months, and the schedule pushed out even at that point when we were opening bids. So it wasn't obvious through the whole thing. Now, I will say we raised the issue as we got into the project, and we said we don't have that long of contract to do that much construction services. I feel like we've done a good job of stretching the budget as far as we have, conducting biweekly construction meetings instead of the monthly that we had budgeted. I feel like we've managed the money well. But there is 11 months still to go, and we didn't have that in our scope of work. Now, maybe it was a bad idea to ask for a scope of work for the construction phase services before we really knew what was involved. You can say that wasn't a good idea, but this is where we are. And so I hope I've given you, I know I haven't answered your question.
I haven't seen enough documentation to back up the items that you're asking for and extend and double the schedule. I'd like to see some more documentation.
What kind of documentation?
Whatever you can provide to justify the doubling of the schedule.
You talking about you want to see the construction schedule?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay. Make a construction schedule available to you and show you how it's planned out till December 25th.
And if you have materials that's impacting the schedule that can't be delivered on time, maybe you can show what the original schedule for the material delivery was versus the current schedule of delivery and what the difference of that?
When we
I
put
just
a-
don't see, other than you just asking for 48 additional weeks, I don't see any other documentation that's supporting the additional time.
I had a contract for 16 months, and the project is going to take 27 months. I have a scope of work.
Was it
in a
that far
contract.
off in the original? I mean,
That's-
did
that's
you
what
miss
I-
it by that much? Because it wasn't that long ago that all this took place.
In 2020 is when we, in early 2020 is when we negotiated this contract and set that, our estimated construction schedule at 16 weeks, and that's what is in our contract. And then, as I've tried to explain, as the CMAR came on board and they said this project's going to take longer than that, and then every time they updated the schedule through that 2021 and through design, they said it's going to take longer and longer because everybody was understanding that projects were taking much, much longer to do, and they kept pushing that schedule out. So it wasn't.
But there's a reason that's taking longer, and I don't, you haven't explained what the reasons are. So typically the reasons are because you can't get materials, but it doesn't take longer to dig a ditch from point A to point B. That length of time is still the same. If there's a material shortage and you can't get materials on time, I can understand that, but just saying that it's just going to take longer, that doesn't make sense. So if you have some backup documentation to support the half a $500,000 that you're asking for, or something to back up the T&M basis on that, then provide that. But I don't see it in this package that we have, other than an ask and a double schedule.
Maybe what would help is to have the CMAR come before you and talk about their construction schedule so that you understand.
Okay. That was my question. I don't see it with the packet that we've got here. I don't see the information for it.
The backup for the time and materials is in the amendment. It's in there. Sheet in there.
So if this contract is not approved, the contractor is going to continue to work. What is in here is your oversight. This $516,000 is Friesen Nichols' oversight to the construction.
That's correct. Well, and all the construction administration and all of the general engineering representation that our staff is doing to support the project.
We have a question or a comment from Councilmember Plunkett.
We sit up here and we see a lot of contracts come through, and we see, we approve a lot of stuff, and we are very much reliant on staff to advise us, because we don't know how to build a water treatment plant. We don't know how long it takes to build a water treatment plant or how much they're supposed to cost. We can't know that. And so I'm going to ask Fabiola or Sylvia to chime in and, help advise us on, on the risks versus the expense of approving or not approving this.
Okay. So I was not part of the negotiations when this contract was established, when it was made between the city and Friesen Nichols. But learning from Friesen Nichols, they are pretty much like running out of funds from the existing contract. So if this contract doesn't get authorized tonight, then perhaps we're not going to have the oversight construction when the constructions continue from with the CMAR. And there's an existing contract that allows the CMAR to be substantially complete by December of this year and January of 2025. And we need the construction oversight to continue to make sure that we keep this project on schedule and on budget. So I would recommend authorization of this contract.
Madam City Manager, would it be advisable that we have, at our next council meeting, we have our CMAR up here so we can query them on this project, why the delays are in place and what we can do to mitigate that?
Absolutely, but I continue to remind it's not a delay. The CMAR said it was a 28-month project, and so I think therein lies the disconnect. There should have been an amendment to this at some point in 2020 or wherever that 28-month timeframe prior to Fabiola or I. The project from a 28-month perspective is on target. It will be delivering water in May and the final wells will be delivering in January. So the risk for me is if we take this off the table, then the potential, like the wastewater treatment plant, to be so far off schedule that we're years into the process. So I'm happy to have the CMAR come at the April 9th meeting. I just don't want this to run into another issue similar to the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, me neither. That's why I was, asked the way I did.
Councilmember Crouch, your light is on again.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what we're going to do to make sure that the TM portion of the work, so who's going to oversee the invoicing and items that are brought in to account for this $500,000?
I will.
Okay. So
I review and send it for processing to finance.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Council, we've heard the presentations. We've expressed our trepidation on this. There's no further discussion. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion from Councilmember Plunkett. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Meyer. Any further discussion? Seeing none indicated, Madam City Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Councilmember Plunkett.
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 11B, consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-37 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving and ratifying the execution of a wholesale wastewater services agreement and a wastewater facility payment contribution agreement between the city and Corex Utilities, Inc., as attached in Exhibit A and B respectively, providing for a repealing clause and establishing an effective date. Ms. Carrillo.
Good evening, Council. The last several council meetings and the news media, we've all spoken about Corex and the agreement with the City of Bastrop to provide service to SpaceX. This is ratification of said agreement. So we've entered into the agreement with Corex. The contribution, as you recall, requires $3.5 million from the city. SpaceX will pay $3 million, and Corex is to pay the remaining portion of that. Half of our dollars are due up front and half are due at completion. Additionally, as part of this agreement, we have talked about the land acquisition and the right-of-way that are going to be necessary to bring that line down 969. This agreement calls for Corex, and the next agenda item calls for Corex to fund said acquisition and make payment through an escrow account. Finally, we review our impact fees and Corex's impact to the overall wastewater system. So essentially, they are absolutely a partner. It is imperative that we help keep costs down. We spread the costs so that our ratepayers are not impacted. So any expansion to the plant that Corex is taking a portion of, Corex will also pay that portion. And then any additional impact fees as additional tie-ons to the system will also become part of a Corex fee. So it is essentially a triple net. Any questions?
Any questions for our city manager? Councilmember Lee.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to commend the staff, you and the staff on this process. As I do with all things, I went back and watched old council member meetings. I found a bunch of news articles on it, and this was not an easy task, all things said and done. And the way, then when I read the packet and to see how it all came together, I was like, this is pretty awesome. So I definitely want to commend you on bringing this all together. I know it was not an easy feat.
No, it wasn't. When I came on board, we were on opposing ends of the table. All three parties, city, BEDC, and SpaceX and Corex. Not Corex, the boring company. So yes, it took a little while, but thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Plunkett.
As well, I'm very excited to get to this point and excited as well to move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I know there's some discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
This wholesale service commitment talks about peak flow rates, but it's not filled in yet.
So peak flow rates will come from, in the initial, only SpaceX. So we do have, that number needs to be filled out, but our intent at the onset is to only allow flows from SpaceX. The line will be built to ultimate capacity, but in the initial, only SpaceX flows.
But I guess what I'm
It's
pointing
blank.
out is the contract says to be determined no later than March 15th, which was
Last
11
week.
days ago. So I shouldn't be approving a contract that talks about flow rates from a massive company without it being specified.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't have that flow rate in front of me.
Does it exist anywhere not in front of you?
It does. I don't have my computer in front of me
Okay,
either.
so the city of Bastrop has that number.
Yes.
It's just not in this version of the contract.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you'd like to table this to the April 9th meeting, that is totally fine to also, the one that's important is the next one.
Okay, I mean, my biggest concern is that we didn't know what it was, and we're potentially signing up for something that was, unknown.
No,
but
and
that's
I
not
don't,
the
and I
case.
don't want you to do that. If that is not the contract you have in front of you, then I would suggest we table it till the 9th.
Okay.
Then if you suggest that we
Yes,
table it, then
yes.
I will withdraw my
Yes.
motion. If I
That's
can do
that's a critical factor, so.
Motion to table until the 9th.
I have a motion to table this item,
that. I'll second it.
and I have a second.
Sorry, Councilmember Plunkett.
Mayor Pro Tem, your light is still on. Do you have another question?
Done.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion indicated. Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett.
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes. Thank you, council. We'll move on to item 11C, consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-34 of the City Council, City of Bastrop, Texas, approving a wastewater easement acquisition agreement between the city and Corex Utilities, Inc., as attached as Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. Ms. Carrillo.
This is, the next two agenda items are also related. This is, again, part of the right-of-way that's required. The city has authority to acquire right-of-way. We will partner with Corex. Corex will pay the surveying and all of the legal and land acquisition fees associated with that work. This agreement would allow the city and Corex to enter into said agreement.
Any questions for our city manager? Seeing none, Madam City Secretary, I'm sorry, Councilmember Crouch, do you have a question? Madam City Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Make a motion to approve.
So sorry.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I was looking at, there's Councilmember Meyer and Councilmember Lee with a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none indicated, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor, there, for item 11B, I do have a citizen that wanted to speak on that.
I do have that. Do you still wish to speak on this item, although we've tabled it? Okay.
Can we, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to vote?
Yeah, let me. We on 11C, we have a motion on the floor in a second. No further questions, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll, and I'll go back to 11B.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes. Thank you, council. Now we'll take the public comment on item B. Mr. Ross. State your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. I apologize for missing that.
Thank you very much. Judah Ross. I live in Riverside Grove in the city of Bastrop. I wanted to speak in favor of the agreement with Corex, although I would say with the caveat, as Council Member or Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland mentioned, that, and I certainly appreciate your efforts of making sure that anything that is approved is actually read first and is in favor of the citizens. But just in general, I want to speak on the issue of SpaceX and Corex. And I'd say this with apologies to Hampton Inn and TJ Finn of bringing them up again, but it was just about a year ago that TCEQ had a public hearing on the treatment plant that SpaceX and I believe Boring was applying for to have a pocket plant there. And I attended it as well as many other citizens. And I just wanted to, for people who haven't been following it, just give a little bit of background and mention some names. And I think it's really important in the context of understanding what this issue is about. But a friend of mine, Chap Ambrose, has been a big force behind making sure that the companies that come and invest here, and I think we all want that, are good neighbors and are taking care of our river and environment. And I want to commend, I remember at that meeting that the previous mayor, Mayor Schrader, was there and spoke in favor of SpaceX tying into our new water treatment plant. And just commend council and the city manager for this. And to say, as just a citizen here and a business owner and just a member of the community, you know, I'd say this to SpaceX and Boring and anyone else. You know, we love development here. We want businesses. They're bringing fantastic jobs to this community. But you need to be a good neighbor, and you need to take care of the environment and take care of the community. So again, my support and appreciation to SpaceX and to the city and to council for making this happen and making sure that it happens properly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to item 11D, consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-35 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving an agreement between the city, Seven Arrows Land Staff, LLC, and Corex Utilities, Inc. for Seven Arrows Land Staff, LLC, to provide professional land rights acquisition services in the amount not to exceed $500,500 as attached as Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. Madam City Manager.
Mayor and Council, thank you. This is actually the company who will perform the right-of-way acquisitions. It is Seven Arrows. It is an agreement between City Corex, with Seven Arrows being the contract provider. Corex will pay $100,000 into escrow to begin the services, and the total estimated cost is $500,500. That will be funded by Corex as part of our agreement.
Any questions for our city manager? Councilmember Plunkett.
And does that 500,000 include the land itself, or is that just for the services? I was trying to see in the breakdown of what they were, and it
May or
looked
may
like it was there.
may or may not include
And,
the
right,
land.
Yeah, and I understand, but there is a reserve in there for
Yes,
land.
that
That's
is
that 200 and something K, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Most of our initial conversations with landowners along the 969 corridor, to include many future residential communities, are interested in tying into the line. So it's fundamentally important that as we're going through this process, whoever can and will tie on for a nominal fee for right-of-way privileges, for example, would be able to do that, and the reserve be left for those property owners who their rights need to be purchased, so to speak.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
We have experienced greater costs than that. I understand the trepidation.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
So the cost on this is borne by Corex?
Correct.
And then even the land acquisition?
Correct.
Okay. And why are we a party to this agreement?
The city has specific powers for acquisition that Corex does not.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Part of the partnership. No further questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Crouch. Seeing no further discussion, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Thank you, council. We'll move to item 11E, consider action to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2024-08 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinances related to Chapter 14, the Bastrop Building Block B3 Code, Article 9.2, Categories of Preservation, establishing standards and procedures as attached in Exhibit A, and providing for findings of fact, repealer, severability, codification, effective date, proper notice, and meeting, and move to include on the April 9, 2024 consent agenda for the second reading. Ms. Higgins.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this is the ordinance that I actually spoke about with you at last council that we would be bringing to you today. It is of the Historic Landmark Code. All it does is remove the requirement of a public hearing in front of council. Like I said last time, there still will be a public hearing in front of the Historic Landmark Commission. This amendment removes the requirement of a second public hearing at council.
Outstanding. Ms. Higgins has laid this out. Any questions for Ms. Higgins? Seeing none. Oh, Councilmember Lee, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. So I didn't see any red line items. So it mentioned the red line items somewhere.
When I was looking back at the ordinance that had got posted onto the agenda, I don't think it copied it. But if you look at the screen, actually, it's removing the word. That's why I put it up there for y'all. I can have that fixed when we go for the second reading. It's just technology didn't cooperate with me right then. But it's just removing the phrase "conduct a public hearing" and so the ordinance will read, "It shall be submitted to the City Council to consider the designation," instead of "to conduct a public hearing and consider designation."
Okay, so no more public hearing, it'll just come to council.
Yes,
Got it.
ma'am.
All right, yeah, I was like, I'm
sorry about that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Myers. Seeing no other discussion, Councilmember Lee, your light is on. Is that? Seeing no further discussion indicated, Madam City Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. We'll move to item 11F, consider action to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2024-10, authorizing the amendment of the City of Bastrop's FY 2024 budget with a reduction of $25,000 in revenue received from the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation allocated to the Main Street program, providing for severability, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing an effective date, providing for a proper meeting and notice, and move to include on the April 9, 2024 consent agenda for a second reading. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Madam City Manager.
Yes, sir.
I think we know what this is.
Okay.
Can we just approve it? Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Meyer. Seeing no further comment or questions, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland.
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. We will move on to item 11G. Consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-36 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, confirming the appointment by the mayor of Richard Smarsick to place 6, Catherine Lang to place 4, Christopher Higgins to place 3, and Judith Magana to place 9 of the Main Street Board of Directors as required in Section 3.08 of the city's charter and establish an effective date. Council, I had vetted these applications through the Main Street liaison as well as with the city manager. I've taken their advice, and of the 5 applications I presented, the 4 that was agreed upon by the various parties that vetted it, and I respectfully ask for y'all's confirmation of these appointees.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Meyer, a second from Councilmember Crouch. Any further discussion? Seeing none indicated, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland,
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. We really appreciate people who step forward to serve on our committees and boards. Moving on to 11H, consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-39 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving an interlocal agreement with the Bastrop County Water Control and Improvement District Number 2 for the maintenance and improvement of certain streets as attached in Exhibit A, authorizing the execution of all necessary documents, providing for a repealer, and providing an effective date. Mr. Rosales.
Mayor, Council, thank you. This item is to sign an interlocal agreement with Bastrop County let me make sure this is the right one. Yes. Oh no, this one's backwards. Sorry, we're going to jump ahead. This one is for the ILA for Bastrop County WCID number 2. We're going to be covering these streets here. It's Aloha Lane, Riva Court, Cooey Court, Kaloha Lane. These are all in WCID's district, but they're also in the city limits, and so we're partnering with them. They're going to perform the maintenance while they're out there already doing streets. They have the equipment, they have the manpower already established. They're going to go out there. We're just going to sign the ILA. We're going to pay for the materials and some of the additional cost, and they're going to do the paving. Any questions?
Council, y'all well know that this is part of our newly implemented street maintenance program, and we're really making great strides on this. I appreciate staff's effort on this.
And let me clarify one thing. These are the 4 streets we're going to do this year with WCID, and there will be every year annually we'll bring more streets that are inside the city limits that WCID will be working on. But these are the 4 we're going to do this physical year.
Outstanding. Any questions for our Assistant City Manager?
Just clarification. I'm sorry, because in the packet it says reimburse, so we are paying upfront, not reimbursing after the fact.
There's going to be some upfront costs, and then there will be some reimbursement. So they're going to go get the material, and then they will send us a bill for the material. There will be some other costs associated with it, but very little. Most of it will be a reimbursement cost, as outlined in the.
And the amounts are fairly low. Oh, what type of material are we putting on the roads?
They're doing chip seal, is that correct? They're doing chip seal, so most of it will be rock material. And these streets are like really short streets. Most of them are like 300, 400 feet streets. They're very small streets. Cul-de-sacs, things like that. They're really small streets.
Okay, I think that was it. I was looking at the cost and I was like, well, what are we putting down?
Yeah, it'll be the chip seal that they already do in WCID. We're just going to allow them to continue with that.
What's riprap?
Riprap is the
large rock.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
For the mitigation of the drainage.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes, I'm certainly not going to complain about the cost being low, but I would like to just say how great it is that we are cooperating and working together, because it means we save everyone money.
Yes.
So I really appreciate the work.
Yes. Thank you.
How true. Any further discussion?
Ditto, Councilmember Meyer, and move to approve.
I have a motion from Councilmember
Second.
Plunkett. I have a second from Councilmember Crouch. Seeing no further comment or discussion noted, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
We will move to 11I with more good news. Consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-40 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving an interlocal agreement with Bastrop County for the maintenance and improvement of certain streets as attached in Exhibit A, authorizing the execution of all necessary documents, providing for repealer, and providing an effective date. Mr. Rosales.
Mayor, Council, same, except for this one will be with Bastrop County, and this would include all precincts, precinct 1, 2, 3, and 4. We were originally going to do a specific agreement with the individual precincts, and instead we have communicated back and forth with the county and decided to do a holistic agreement. And then each year, we're going to bring back a agreement for costs, just like we did WCID. There'll be a form that we'll bring back to you guys that will have the cost and the streets associated with it. But just for showing, these are the 2 streets we're going to do right off the bat this year with the county. In Precinct 1, we're going to do Lover's Lane. Precinct 1 is going to start in the county, and they're going to come all the way down, so we're just going to continue with what they're going to do. They want to start this as soon as this agreement's signed. It's going to go to the county for their approval, and they're going to start on Lover's Lane. So expect that one to go pretty quick. And then Precinct 2, it will be Hoffman Road. They're going to pave all of Hoffman from South Shore all the way down into the city. So again, they're already going to be there working. We're just going to buy the material and allow them to continue all the way through the city limits. And so these are the 2 we're going to do this year, and we'll continue to bring back more streets. In Precinct 2, we're going to go Piney Ridge, all the additional streets over there. And then Precinct 1 will be some additional streets in the Tahitian area. And then we're going to also work with, we haven't finalized everything with Precinct 4 as far as our, some of the other streets that are out on this other side towards, down 304 area. So any questions?
Any questions for the chief? This is really another win for us. We're not only utilizing their expertise and their equipment, we're able to accelerate or at least implement our street maintenance program a lot earlier. Yeah,
yes,
much earlier. So there's no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Crouch, a second from Councilmember Meyer. Any further discussion needed? Seeing none, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland?
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Thank you, council, and thank you, staff. Moving on to item 11J, consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-38 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, adopting the previously accepted 2023 City of Bastrop Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. Madam City Manager.
Good afternoon, good evening, Mayor and Council. Same thing, the council previously approved or accepted the Parks and Recreation Master Plan with the noted changes to Mayfest Park. This is formal adoption of said plan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Councilmember Lee.
I just have a question, kind of related. Our packet talks about grants. And the one time we had talked about maybe training someone to become a grant writer so that we can take advantage of more opportunities for grants, not just for parks, but for all things. Where are we in that process?
We are not. Currently, grant writing is still outsourced to the multiple contracts. The plan is to bring it into the next budget if we can find the space in the budget.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeing no further discussion, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Thank you, council. We'll move to our last individual consideration, 11K. Consider action to approve resolution number R-2024-29 regarding a petition filed by E. Ron R. Smith to remove approximately 128.563 acres of land as described in the petition from the City of Bastrop's extraterritorial jurisdiction pursuant to Local Government Code, Chapter 42. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As council is aware, the Texas legislature prescribes a way for properties to withdraw themselves from the city's ETJ. This property is located beyond the Hyatt. It's located near Cotton Top Drive. It is beyond the Pope Bend RV Park, very near Double Eagle Ranch. The city does not have any objection to the property withdrawing from its ETJ.
Thank you. I have a public comment request here. Judah Ross to speak on this item. He has now withdrawn his desire to speak on this item. Councilmember Lee, you have a question?
I have a question. It might be for Alan. As I was reading this, I started wondering if someone were to purchase the land, say this homeowner moves and purchase the lands, I don't remember any discussion about what happens if the new owner wants to annex in. I don't remember us having any conversations, but it got me to thinking.
Certainly. Councilmember Lee and council, if a property owner would like to be brought back into our ETJ later, they have the right to request that of the city, and the council will have the discretion at that time whether to expand their ETJ. One reason our ETJ is so large at this point when compared to other cities is that decades ago, property owners did ask to be brought into our ETJ.
So it would just be a simple contact the city. And in their purchase, is there something in their purchase that would let them know they're outside of the ETJ because of a petition?
I don't know that there's any notification telling them how they got out of the ETJ. There may be disclosures that they're in the county and not anywhere else. And one other condition that would need to be there, if at some point a future purchaser owner would like to be brought into the ETJ, there would need to be an ETJ contingent or adjacent to that parcel. We can't just have a checkerboard of ETJ. It must connect.
But it would not cost them any money. They would just apply to be part of the ETJ.
I don't know of any fee that would apply at this time. I suppose some admin fee could be added, but it's unlikely.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion, Councilmember Lee, a second, Councilmember Plunkett. Seeing no further discussion indicated, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. We'll be moving into executive session. We've already considered item 12A. We'll start with item 12B. City Council shall convene in a closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 to seek the advice of legal counsel regarding the plans for potential annexation of certain county roads as related in future development projects. Item 12C, City Council shall convene in a closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 to seek the advice of legal counsel regarding current laws and procedures for the creation of a municipal utility district. Item 12D, City Council shall convene in a closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 to seek the advice of legal counsel regarding current laws and procedures for creation of a public improvement district. And item 12E, City Council shall convene in a closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 to seek the advice of legal counsel regarding a mutual release and termination of a development agreement with Bastrop Colorado Bend LLC, including de-annexation of Bastrop 552 project property. It is 9:37. Council is in executive session. It is 10:15. Council is back into open session. We will not take any action on items 12B, 12C, 12D, but I believe we have a motion on item 12E.
Yeah, I move to approve the agreement indicated in 12E and authorize the city manager to execute.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second with Councilmember Lee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland,
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes. Thank you, council. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We stand adjourned.